Hello, art and activism students. I have a real treat for you today. A nice little side interview here with Sarah Rutledge Fischer. Yeah. She's agreed to come and talk to us today about the work that she makes and how it is that she uses it for art as art and activism. Sarah is an artist, writer, activist, all of those things and more, living and working in Fairhope, Alabama. She is primarily figurative, whether through expressive nude figures or colorful paintings like the ones you can see right behind her there. And they arrive from intuitive process. She makes a lot of work about people, stories, emotions, expressions, and character. You might want to check out some of Sarah's writing. The magazine, Focus Mid-South Magazine, a bi-monthly print online publication that's targeted at the LGBTQ population of Tennessee. Under the banner of her advice column, Identity, Ask Allie, Sarah addresses such topics as non-binary gender identity, conversion therapy, transgender online dating, HIV status disclosure, and yes, the alphabet soup of the LGBTQIA acronym. Definitely need to go and check out the Focus Mid-South magazine, and I will put a link on the stream so you can go and look at that after this. In addition, Sarah is the founder and site director of Prism United Fairhope. So amazing. A nonprofit organization dedicated to the needs of LGBTQ plus youth in Fairhope and the surrounding areas. She's no longer practicing, but is also a licensed attorney in both California and Alabama. Did I tell you that this lady does everything? Prior to practicing law, Sarah worked in commercial real estate and website development and regional theater, all which have contributed to the skill set that she is able to bring to her work every day. Welcome, SRF. Welcome. We're so glad to have you here to speak with us today. And we just have a small selection of questions for you. This is going to be pretty quick. But we want to get a rundown of what your artwork and your activism is all about. So number one, let's talk about your art and how did you get started?
Well, as my little brief introduction you gave shows, I took a very winding path to the work of art. So I did not go to art school right out of high school or any such thing. I did a lot of art when I was younger. And then I thought that I wasn't allowed to be an artist. I had a very small high school, and out of the 52 students, Jenny was the artist and I was a poet. So I wasn't allowed to be the artist because Jenny was the artist. Anyway.
Dang, Jenny.
I know. So, 15 years later, I was practicing law and really unhappy, and found my way to a figure drawing group on the weekends, on the occasional weekends when I wasn't working and miserable. And it was like a ray of light shined back on me, and I just kind of grasped onto it. And once I extracted myself from law practice, I just kept pulling on that, that feeling and that experience of when I was at the easel, because at first I really stuck just with figure drawing. It felt like a door to myself that I wasn't able to access any other place in my life. And these days I've recovered a bit from that. Law practice can be great for some people. It was not good for me. And so I'm able to access that, that feeling and that connection with self in many, many, many aspects of my life. But I still come back to my artwork over and over to really draw into that sense of self, that sense of growth, that sense of connection to the world. Sure. And so I guess my work Started in figure drawing. I haven't been able to do much live in-person figure drawing over the past year. But that's still the core of my work. And then the other side of my work are these really kind of colorful, imaginative paintings that come out of an intuitive process that just is really, really useful to me.
Well, sure. Tell us how your process takes you there. I'm very curious about that.
Oh, that's great. I should have grabbed some of my messy backgrounds, but I have a lot of different processes, but my go-to process is one that I learned from an artist named Fonda Haight Clark, and it's a really introspective process. And I have a stack like over there about this thick of just sheets of paper that I've prepped with gesso and then created complex, messy backgrounds of texture and color using different drawing and painting implements and different kinds of media. And then I'll coat those or use a spray fixative on them. And at a later time, I'll sit down with those backgrounds. And I really try not to sit down with what I call like a thinking brain idea. Like I don't want to sit down and think, I'm going to draw a duck today. I have drawn a duck before, but I don't know why I chose a duck. There's water outside my window. But I try not to sit down and think, today I'm going to draw a flower that would look nice in a gallery. That's just, you know, it might be more lucrative if that were my MO, but it's not. I sit down and I look into this messy combination of lines and colors, and I just try to kind of open myself up to whatever it is I need to see in that mess that day. And I don't try to think my way there. I just try to stay curious and look. It's 3 steps away. Do you want me to grab one of these backgrounds to show?
Grab it, please.
So I have backgrounds. Can you see them?
Mm-hmm.
That start. This is a bunch that I made at the same time that have different lines and textures, different colors. I used, you know, fluid acrylics and pigment marking pencils and just anything that grabbed my attention. And what I'll do is sit down with them. Let's see, let me grab one. A little demonstration. I might sit down with this one and just say, like, okay, what am I going to see in here? I'm
already seeing stuff in there.
Right, exactly. What an interesting thing is that each of your students is probably as well, and they're all seeing something different, and there's no wrong thing to see. What you're seeing, it's coming out of your own experience, your own subconscious. And so I tend to see faces, I mean, as you can tell. And so what I see is like a chin and a hairline and a cheek right here. But somebody else might see a bird or a mountain. And what I do then is I start following these lines and using my implements to kind of pull the shape forward and using glazes and different media to just kind of pull what I see. But again, not saying,
oh, cool.
Okay, yeah, and I can't say like, oh, I see a chin and so there's going to be a face, let me draw a face. I sit there, I draw the chin, and then I look for what I see next. And if there's no eye, then I wait until it shows up. And sometimes I draw a face and another eye keeps showing up. And I think there's no way I need to draw another eye on her forehead, but it won't. I keep seeing it. If I don't follow the process and I try to. I don't know what you mean by I see. Siri on my watch wanted to join the conversation.
Siri says, I don't know what you mean, Sarah. That's awesome.
I don't know what Siri would see. So yeah, so this is one I've been working on today. And I did not want to draw that eye up there because it just
It's kind of perfect though.
I know. If I ignore it, it's always flat and boring. And if I listen to it, no matter how weird it seems, then something comes out of it. But the point of this is not just to tell you about my process, is that what comes out of it usually speaks to something that I'm grappling with in my own sense of identity or understanding of the world. And so, it doesn't.
That's a big
hurt.
impact on self-identity for sure.
Right. And so each one of these paintings has a very, actually, some of them have a very personal meaning to me. Some of them I'm still trying to listen to and understand. But, this one and this lady with the snake, for example, are both about, to some degree, the masks of identity that we wear for public perception versus the feeling of being underneath those masks, and the way that those masks are sometimes a good tool that we, are grateful for, and sometimes a heavy burden. So in that way, each of these paintings is speaking up for a voice that I'm having trouble putting in words. And then giving me the words to understand something that I am grappling with about myself or the way I interact or relate to the world.
Fantastic. Well, that also answers my next question, which is how has it helped you to advocate for yourself or for others?
True. Well, and to address that question a little bit, because the work that I do is advocacy for LGBTQ youth, the only way I can work with them and advocate for them is to know myself and be as strong and stable in my own identity as I can. And so even though some of these paintings have meanings that could, to me, that could touch on my LGBTQ identity, but more than that, the more I can use them to understand myself, the more I can stand on my 2 feet firmly to use my energy and creativity to help other people.
Absolutely. Could you share with us a specific time that your art helped you to solve a problem or express something that you didn't fully understand about yourself?
Well, I think it's always doing that. I mentioned this painting with the snake. I started this painting probably 2 years ago, and it's in process because I set it aside for a while. I could feel that it had this very strong emotional impact for me, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was. And because my process is a lot about listening and kind of staying in that authentic interaction between that idea and my work, if I tried to move ahead without feeling connected to that meaning, then it would be like, not listening to the snake ladies. It would be like ignoring that second eye. And so I kind of set it aside. And more recently, I've come to this understanding of the way that the masks of gender, of appropriateness, of motherhood, of white middle-aged womanhood, all the various roles that I hold in society, the way that I wear those masks in public can feel like a burden and can feel like something I need to shed. But at the same time, they are something that I've adopted to protect myself from the judgment, from conflict, from whatever it is that I felt vulnerable to. And so for a long time, I didn't have the words to discuss that or express that or help the kids in my program navigate their own struggles with that. But as I sat with this painting and just let it do its work on me, I began to understand why, to my mind, the woman in this painting isn't the least bit frightened of the snake and has great affection for the snake, because the snake may feel like a burden and it may look strange, but it's also there to protect her, and it's also a friend. And so I'm not sure if I
That was perfect.
articulated.
Yeah, that was perfect.
And I couldn't rush it. It's taken me a couple of years for my own self-knowledge to catch up with what my subconscious was trying to express in that painting. And now I can go ahead and finish her up hopefully pretty soon. But yeah, so that's experience.
Perfect. This reminds me of, I've been doing a lot of reading on narrative identity. And yeah, the narrative identities that we create for ourselves and how we actually get really upset whenever our narrative identities are threatened. Like these are the identities that I have for myself. And if people, poke them with a stick, that you get really, really mad. Because you're like, wait a minute, there's stuff under there. You don't want to, this is mine, go away.
Right.
And some of it positive, some of it negative, but all part of your narrative self. It makes me wonder, like, what would happen if everything could be removed? What would be left? I think we're just the stories. We're stories.
Like our exoskeletons, they protect us, our tender, vulnerable hearts from walking around and bumping into each other. But sometimes it's nice to be able to shed it. We forget that we can.
Yeah, you can always rewrite your narratives. Just because they've been there and you've been using them for so long, doesn't mean you can't rewrite them. That's kind
or because someone else gave them to you and told you what your exterior.
Hey, here, this is part of your story, and you can be like, wait a minute, hold on a second, I don't like that. Edit, cut. Right. I think it's neat to think about identity as being something that can be changeable. Especially like, if you've gone through a hard time, or, maybe you grew up with some kind of oppressive identities, that those things can be shed and can be changed. And I love your steak lady. Yeah, I can't wait to see when it's finished.
I do too.
This is making me think, like, man, why don't I have some of your art in this house? I need to be looking at some art hanging on the wall here.
It's doable. It's not impossible.
Good. All right. Well, thank you for speaking with us today. We really appreciate you taking the time out of, I know what is a busy, busy schedule. And do you have any last words of advice for anybody who's trying to make advocacy art or trying to make art about themselves?
I have advice for anyone who wants to try that intuitive process that I described, which is that it's like working a muscle. And the first time you do it, your thinking brain that wants to say, I'm going to draw a duck, is going to really try to impose that duck. And so don't be upset with yourself for that. But just try to be curious instead of prescriptive. Just look with curiosity and then enjoy that sense of discovery and follow that excitement, that little tingle of discovery.
Ooh, nice advice. Thank you so much. I'll be putting up all of the links on the stream, so that my students can check out your work and maybe get in touch with you if they want to hear more.
Yes, tell them, please reach out. I'm always happy to hear from people.
All right. Thanks so much. The notorious SRF.
Oh, I'm going to own that. Yes.
All right. Bye-bye.